Today I'm going to talk about a really extraordinary idea. This idea actually moved me tremendously. It's an idea from the ancient philosophy of Stoicism, which has become hugely popular since about 2010. It's become very much enmeshed in self-help literature and things like that, because Stoicism is a very powerful philosophy for finding equanimity in the face of problems or even danger. And there are many reasons for that I can potentially go into in future videos. But today I want to take one aspect of Stoic philosophy that I think brings an enormous sense of equanimity, but also reveals something about Stoicism that we don't usually think about in the modern period we're in now. We often look at Stoicism as this kind of personally focused self-help philosophy. Stoicism was actually a spiritual movement. It was many centuries long. It originated in ancient Athens, and it was a very kind of religious worldview. That was a tremendously important aspect of Stoicism. Now, I'm not going to ask any of my viewers to start believing in Zeus or anything like that, but there's an aspect of Stoic spirituality that I think is really important, and you can use even if you live a very kind of secular life. So today I'm going to talk about Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman emperor. He came quite late in the Stoic period. He's often regarded as the last great Stoic. He was an emperor, and we often think of emperors as being these people who live very lavish, easy, simple, and wealthy lives. Actually, it's not the case. Like for an emperor, life was actually really difficult. Emperors tended to not spend much time in power, often because they were overthrown or because they were assassinated, and they would have been surrounded by sycophants and hangers-on who, just are there to supply a kind of echo chamber for the emperor's own thoughts. And that's why emperors are associated with this kind of maniacal absolute power. Like we think of Nero and Caligula as these kind of extremely decadent maniacs who just have everything at their disposal. But all of these emperors, the two I've just mentioned, actually died at a young age because they were overthrown. It was a very dangerous position to be in, to be the emperor of the Roman Empire. And it was no less dangerous for Marcus Aurelius. He himself was subject to an attempt, a coup by one of his generals in the east. That never materialized. Marcus actually died of natural causes as the emperor, but nevertheless it was a difficult position to be in. And Marcus found a lot of solace in Stoic philosophy. It gave him an immense amount of strength. He was a very gifted writer, and definitely a deep thinker. He wasn't hugely original as a philosopher. A lot of his work is written work is derivative, and that's probably because his written work was actually addressed to himself. He didn't actually write for publication, as far as historians know. Now, this idea is really interesting. There's a passage in Marcus's Meditations that deals with prayer. Now, as human beings, fear stalks us. We're constantly afraid, right? We're afraid about our bank balance. We're afraid about our social standing. We're afraid about losing our property. We're afraid of crime. We're afraid of politics not going in the way that we want politics to go. We have these huge fears, and that seems to be unique to the human being. If you imagine, I think it was Seneca who said that when animals are spooked, they would run away, but then very quickly settle again, right? with human beings, fear is constantly stalking us. We lose sleep over the fears we have, and we pray and hope that our fears never materialize, and we pray and hope that our problems come to an end. And Marcus believed that this was a slavish, his quote, to behave. He believed that to pray and wish for things that are out of our grasp was a slavish way to behave, right? You've got to make use of what you've already got, and you've got to cherish what you've already got. And that's very much bound up with the Stoic way of thinking, is to make the most of what fate has dealt you. Now, we can pray, we can wish that our problems end, but fate will do with us what it will. And that's a central idea in Stoic philosophy, is that you can control how you think about the world, but you can't control the world itself. Fate is out of your hands. Instead, Marcus asked us to basically pray, and I'm going to quote him here, is to pray how to find strength to face up to your problems, how to find strength to make the most of what you got, and not hope for anything else. I mean, to hope for nothing at all is the best hope that we could possibly have. So Marcus actually lost at least 2 infant children, which would have been incredibly upsetting to him. And he wrote in a really extraordinary passage of Meditations, one man prays, "How may I not lose my little child? But you must pray, how may I not be afraid to lose him?" Now think about that. That comes from a man who lost children himself. He's not praying. He was a deeply, deeply religious man. Marcus Aurelius, throughout the Meditations, makes numerous references to God, to Zeus, the kind of Roman equivalent of the all-powerful, the Greco-Roman equivalent of the all-powerful God. And he's beckoning himself. He's chastising himself not to pray for things that are out of his reach. If his children are going to die, they're going to die. And he prays for the strength to be able to cope with that, to cope with the trauma and the loss and the suffering that will inevitably come in life. And I find that an extraordinary idea. I find it profoundly moving as a father myself. And if you're religious and you pray, or if you're secular and you simply hope, then I think there's a real lesson here that we should make the most of what's within our use, not to pray and hope for that winning lottery ticket or that super yacht or big house or anything like that. Make the most of what we've got and pray for the strength to be able to appreciate it, and pray for the strength to cope with the problems that we come to face. I really hope that idea was interesting to you. I hope that was a great little history lesson. I've written a much more in-depth article about this concept and about Marcus Aurelius. It's on the link below. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, ring the bell, or whatever it is the Google algorithm wants you to do. And I hope you have a good read of the article below. I think it's a fascinating concept and something we should all try to embrace. Thank you so much.